Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is making thousands of decisions. It's filtering information, processing emotions, and determining your next thought. But here's what most people don't realize. You're not in control of this process. Your brain is running you instead of you running your brain. This isn't about talent. It's not about intelligence. It's about mental discipline. Your mind is either your biggest weapon or your greatest weakness. And the difference is whether you control it or it controls you. By the time you finish this video, you will not think the same way you do right now. That's not a vague promise. It's a biological fact. Your brain is rewiring itself every second of every day. Every time you challenge a belief, shift a thought, or practice mental control, you physically change your brain structure. This is called neuroplasticity, and it's the reason why some people remain stuck in self-sabotage while others break free and reprogram their minds for success. The difference isn't luck, it's knowledge and training. And today you're going to learn how to take complete control of your mind and start outperforming everyone around you. Chapter 1: The Mental Performance Gap. Here's a harsh reality that most people will never accept. The difference between those who succeed at the highest levels and those who struggle isn't talent, connections, or luck. It's mental performance. While everyone else is focused on external strategies, the top 1% have mastered something far more powerful: their own minds. Look around you. How many people do you know who are truly living up to their potential? How many are completely focused, emotionally regulated, and mentally disciplined? The answer is almost none. Most people are walking around in a mental fog, reacting to their emotions, distracted by every notification and completely at the mercy of their unconscious programming. They set goals but can't follow through. They know what they should do but don't do it. They want to change but keep falling back into the same patterns. They're not lacking information, they're lacking mental control. They've never been taught how to train their brain like a muscle, how to direct their thoughts with precision, or how to override their default programming. This creates a massive opportunity for those who understand how the mind really works. While 99% of people let their thoughts run wild, you can train your brain to work for you instead of against you. While others are slaves to their emotions, you can develop unshakable mental discipline. While they're distracted and scattered, you can achieve laser-like focus that cuts through any challenge. The science is clear on this. Neuroplasticity research shows that your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Every neural pathway can be strengthened or weakened. Every mental habit can be changed. Every limiting belief can be overridden. But most people never take advantage of this incredible ability because they don't know it exists. They think their personality is fixed. They believe their mental patterns are permanent. They accept that they're just not a focused person, or naturally anxious, or not confident. But these are all learned patterns. And what can be learned can be unlearned and replaced with something better. The highest performers in every field understand this. Elite athletes spend as much time training their minds as their bodies. Top entrepreneurs obsess over their mental state and decision-making processes. World-class leaders know that their greatest asset isn't their knowledge or skills. It's their ability to think clearly under pressure and maintain unwavering focus on what matters most. They've discovered what you're about to learn. That mental training is the ultimate competitive advantage. When you can control your thoughts, you can control your emotions. When you can control your emotions, you can control your actions. And when you can control your actions consistently over time, you can control your results and ultimately your entire life. This isn't motivational speaking. This is neuroscience. Your brain doesn't care about your excuses, your past, or your current limitations. It only responds to the patterns you feed it. Change the patterns and you change everything. But first, you need to understand exactly how your mind has been programmed to work against you. Chapter 2: The Subconscious Sabotage System. Your subconscious mind is running your life, and chances are it's not doing a very good job right now. As you're processing these words, your subconscious is filtering this information through a complex web of beliefs, assumptions, and programming that was installed years or even decades ago. Most of this programming wasn't chosen by you. It was absorbed from your environment, your experiences, and the people around you when your mind was most impressionable. Here's what's really happening inside your head. Your subconscious mind processes over 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits. This means that 99.999% of your mental processing is happening below the level of your awareness. Your subconscious is making decisions, filtering reality, and directing your behavior based on programs you're not even conscious of. Think about that for a moment. The vast majority of your thoughts, emotions, and actions are being controlled by mental software that you didn't install, haven't examined, and probably don't even agree with. It's like having a computer running programs in the background that you've never seen, consuming your mental resources and determining your output. This subconscious programming determines what you notice and what you ignore. If you believe you're not good with money, your subconscious will filter out opportunities to make money and highlight every expense and financial worry. If you believe you're not confident, it will focus on every social interaction that confirms this belief while ignoring evidence to the contrary. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined, what's helpful and what's harmful. It simply follows its programming. If that programming tells it that taking risks is dangerous, it will create anxiety every time you try to step out of your comfort zone. If it's programmed to believe that you don't deserve success, it will sabotage your efforts just as you're about to break through. The most insidious part of this system is that it feels completely natural. Your limiting beliefs don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. Your self-sabotaging behaviors don't feel like choices. They feel like inevitable responses to circumstances. Your negative thought patterns don't feel like habits. They feel like accurate assessments of reality. This is why willpower alone isn't enough to create lasting change. You can consciously decide to think more positively or act more confidently, but if your subconscious programming is running counter to these decisions, it will override your conscious intentions every time. It's like trying to drive a car with the emergency brake on. You might make some progress, but you'll never reach your full potential. The subconscious mind is also incredibly resistant to change because its primary function is survival, not success. It interprets anything unfamiliar as potentially dangerous, which is why you feel resistance every time you try to break out of old patterns. That resistance isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's a sign that you're challenging programming that no longer serves you. But here's the crucial insight that changes everything. Your subconscious mind, despite being incredibly powerful, is also incredibly simple. It responds to repetition, emotion, and vivid imagery. It can't distinguish between a real experience and one that's vividly imagined. It accepts as true whatever you consistently tell it, regardless of whether it's actually true. This means that the same mechanism that's been working against you can be reprogrammed to work for you. The neural pathways that currently support limiting beliefs can be weakened while new pathways supporting empowering beliefs are strengthened. The mental habits that create self-sabotage can be replaced with mental habits that create success. Understanding this system is the first step to taking control of it. Once you realize that your current mental programming isn't who you really are, it's just software that can be updated, everything changes. You stop identifying with your limitations and start seeing them as temporary patterns that can be modified. The question isn't whether your mind can be reprogrammed. The question is whether you're going to take control of that programming or let it continue running on autopilot, sabotaging your potential and keeping you stuck in patterns that don't serve your highest good. Chapter 3. The Comfort Zone Prison. Your comfort zone isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. Right now, there's an invisible barrier surrounding your life, determining what you'll attempt and what you'll avoid, what feels possible and what feels impossible. This barrier isn't made of physical walls or external circumstances. It's constructed entirely in your mind, but its effects on your life are absolutely real. Every time you've wanted to make a significant change, start something new, or push beyond your current limits, you've encountered this barrier. It shows up as fear, doubt, overwhelm, or simple resistance to taking action. Your mind floods you with reasons why now isn't the right time, why you need more preparation, why it's too risky, or why you should stay where it's safe. This barrier is not real. It's not made of stone or steel. It's constructed from memories, past experiences, and the unconscious lessons you've absorbed over a lifetime. If you've ever tried to achieve something and failed, your subconscious remembers. If you've ever been hurt, rejected, or embarrassed, your subconscious has stored it away like an archived document ready to pull out whenever you attempt to step beyond your comfort zone. This is why no matter how much you consciously want to succeed, grow, or evolve, your subconscious will resist. It doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about protecting you from perceived danger. And if stepping into the unknown feels dangerous, even if that unknown holds your greatest potential, your mind will sabotage you before you ever begin. The biggest lie your mind tells you is this: you are safe where you are. Your comfort zone is a mirage, a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep you small, predictable, and in control. It convinces you that the familiar is good, that staying in the same patterns, even when they bring you pain, is preferable to taking risks. But let's break this illusion. Think about the moments in your life where you truly felt alive. When your soul was ignited, when excitement pulsed through you like electricity. Did those moments happen inside your comfort zone? Or did they happen when you took a leap? When you challenged yourself? When you risked something and came out the other side stronger? Growth doesn't happen where it's safe. Transformation doesn't come from repetition. Every skill you've ever developed, every relationship that matters to you, every achievement you're proud of, all of these required you to move beyond what was familiar and comfortable. Your comfort zone operates through several key mechanisms that keep you trapped. First, it creates the illusion of safety by making the familiar feel good and the unfamiliar feel dangerous. When you think about doing something that would stretch you, your mind immediately generates worst-case scenarios, focusing on everything that could go wrong while ignoring everything that could go right. Second, it uses your past as evidence for your future limitations. If you failed at something before, it argues that you'll fail again. If you were hurt in a relationship, it warns you that all relationships will hurt you. If you struggled with a particular challenge, it convinces you that you're simply not capable in that area. Third, it makes you addicted to certainty and predictability. It trains you to crave outcomes you can control and situations you can predict, even when those situations don't serve your highest good. This is why so many people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, or circumstances that limit their potential. Not because these situations are actually good for them, but because they're familiar. The comfort zone also operates through energy management. Stepping outside your comfort zone requires mental and emotional energy, while staying within it feels effortless. Your mind, always looking for the path of least resistance, will convince you that you don't have the energy for change, that you're too tired to take on new challenges, or that you should wait until you feel more motivated. But here's what your mind doesn't tell you. The energy required to stay stuck is actually greater than the energy required to grow. Maintaining limiting beliefs, suppressing your potential, and living below your capabilities creates a constant internal tension that drains your vitality. When you break free from your comfort zone, you don't lose energy, you gain it. The most powerful realization you can have is that your comfort zone is entirely optional. Every boundary it creates is negotiable. Every limitation it imposes is changeable. The fear you feel when you approach its edges isn't a warning. It's an invitation. It's your mind's way of saying, here's where your real life begins. Breaking free from your comfort zone isn't about taking reckless risks or ignoring genuine dangers. It's about recognizing that most of the limitations in your life aren't based on actual constraints. They're based on outdated programming that no longer serves you. It's about training yourself to embrace discomfort as a sign of growth rather than a sign of danger. When you start to see your comfort zone for what it really is, not a sanctuary, but a prison, everything changes. You stop asking yourself if you're ready for something and start asking if it will help you grow. You stop waiting for fear to disappear and start taking action in spite of it. You stop protecting yourself from imaginary dangers and start pursuing real opportunities. Chapter 4. The 3 mental traps that destroy performance. Most people fail to execute on their potential because they fall into one of 3 deadly traps. These traps feel like work, so they trick you into believing you're making progress. But in reality, they're keeping you stuck in cycles of inaction and mediocrity. Understanding these traps is crucial because they're so seductive and so common that even intelligent, motivated people get caught in them repeatedly. The first trap is the learning loop. You tell yourself that before you can start, you need to learn more. So you read another book, watch another tutorial, take another course. While education is important, the problem is you never actually move to execution. You keep gathering information waiting for the moment when you feel ready. But that moment never comes because the only real learning happens through action. This trap is particularly dangerous because it feels productive. You're consuming content, taking notes, maybe even paying for courses or coaching programs. Your mind interprets this as progress, but it's actually a sophisticated form of procrastination. You're staying busy with learning to avoid the discomfort of doing. The learning loop feeds on the illusion that more information equals better results. But here's what actually happens. The more you learn without taking action, the more overwhelmed you become. The simple becomes complex. The straightforward becomes confusing. You start to believe that you need to master every nuance and understand every possibility before you can begin. Meanwhile, people with less knowledge but more bias toward action are passing you by. They're learning through doing, adjusting through experience, and gaining real competence while you're still trying to achieve theoretical mastery. The brutal truth is that most of what you think you need to know, you don't. Most of the information you think you're missing, you're not. What you're missing is the willingness to start before you feel ready. The second trap is the perfectionist delay. You convince yourself that you can't start yet because it's not perfect. You want to launch your business, but your website isn't ready. You want to start creating content, but your videos aren't professional enough. You want to apply for that job, but your resume needs more work. You wait and tweak and polish, never realizing that perfect is the enemy of done. This trap is rooted in the fear of judgment and the belief that you only get one chance to make a first impression. Your mind tells you that if you launch something that isn't perfect, people will judge you, criticize you, or dismiss you forever. But this is a fantasy. Most people aren't paying as much attention to you as you think they are. And those who understand that everything starts imperfect and improves over time. The perfectionist delay also stems from the misconception that successful people only show their best work. What you don't see is the countless iterations, failed attempts, and imperfect versions that came before what you're observing. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. And this comparison keeps you paralyzed. The reality is that perfection is not only impossible, it's counterproductive. The fastest way to succeed is to start messy and improve along the way. Every successful person, product, and company started imperfect and got better through iteration and feedback. Waiting for perfection is waiting forever. The third trap is the distraction addiction. You tell yourself you'll work after you check your phone real quick. Then suddenly 30 minutes are gone. You sit down to focus, but your brain craves another hit of dopamine. So you check email, scroll social media, or watch just one more video. Before you know it, the entire day has slipped away. This trap is particularly insidious in our current environment because distraction has been weaponized. Social media platforms, news outlets, and entertainment companies employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists to make their content as addictive as possible. Your attention is being hijacked by algorithms designed to keep you scrolling, clicking, and consuming. The distraction addiction works by fragmenting your focus and reducing your capacity for deep work. Every time you switch between tasks or respond to a notification, your brain has to recalibrate, and this process consumes mental energy. By the end of a day filled with distractions, you feel exhausted even though you haven't accomplished anything meaningful. This trap also feeds on the illusion of productivity. Checking email feels like work. Scrolling through industry news feels like research. Watching motivational videos feels like personal development. But these activities are consumption, not creation. They make you feel busy without making you effective. The most dangerous aspect of the distraction addiction is that it trains your brain to seek instant gratification and avoid sustained effort. The more you give into distractions, the less capable you become of focusing on challenging tasks that require patience and persistence. Your attention span shrinks. Your tolerance for discomfort decreases and your ability to engage in deep meaningful work atrophies. Breaking free from these traps requires recognizing them for what they are: sophisticated forms of self-sabotage that masquerade as productive activities. The learning loop isn't education, it's avoidance. The perfectionist delay isn't quality control, it's fear management. The distraction addiction isn't staying informed, it's escape from responsibility. Once you can identify these patterns in your own behavior, you can start to interrupt them. When you catch yourself saying you need to learn more before starting, you can ask, what's the smallest possible action I could take right now? When you notice yourself waiting for something to be perfect, you can ask, what would this look like if it were easy? When you feel the pull of distraction, you can ask, what am I trying to avoid by escaping into this? The goal isn't to eliminate learning standards or all forms of entertainment from your life. The goal is to ensure these things serve your larger objectives rather than sabotaging them. Learning should lead to action. Standards should drive excellence, not paralysis. Entertainment should refresh you for more meaningful work, not replace it entirely. Chapter 5. Neuroplasticity, your brain's superpower. Your brain possesses an ability so powerful that if you truly understood its implications, you would never again accept limitation as permanent. This ability is called neuroplasticity. And it's the reason why some people completely transform their lives while others remain stuck in the same patterns for decades. Neuroplasticity is your brain's capacity to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your life. This means that the neural pathways that currently support your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors can be weakened while new pathways supporting different thoughts, emotions, and behaviors can be strengthened. In essence, you can literally rewire your brain to think, feel, and act differently. This isn't metaphorical, it's measurable. Brain imaging technology shows that when people practice new skills, engage in different thought patterns, or change their behaviors, their brain structure physically changes. New neural pathways form, existing pathways are strengthened or weakened, and even the size of different brain regions can change based on how they're used. For decades, scientists believed that the adult brain was essentially fixed, that you were stuck with whatever neural wiring you developed in childhood. This belief led to the acceptance of limitations as permanent features of personality and capability. People would say things like, "I'm just not a math person," or, "I've always been anxious," as if these were unchangeable facts about their identity. But research has completely shattered this limiting belief. Studies show that London taxi drivers who must memorize the complex street layout of the city develop enlarged hippocampi, the brain region responsible for spatial memory. Musicians who practice intensively show increased gray matter in areas related to motor control and auditory processing. Even people who learn to juggle show measurable changes in brain structure within just a few weeks of practice. The implications of this research are staggering. It means that virtually any mental limitation you currently experience is not a permanent feature of who you are. It's simply a reflection of how your brain has been trained up to this point. Your current level of confidence, focus, emotional regulation, or any other mental capacity is not your ceiling. It's your starting point. Here's how neuroplasticity works in practical terms. Every time you think a thought, perform an action, or experience an emotion, specific neurons in your brain fire together. The more often these neurons fire in the same pattern, the stronger the connection between them becomes. This is the basis of the saying, neurons that fire together wire together. This process explains why habits feel automatic and why changing them feels difficult. If you've spent years thinking negative thoughts about yourself, the neural pathways supporting those thoughts have become like superhighways in your brain. Wide, deep, and easy to travel. Meanwhile, pathways supporting positive self-talk might be like small dirt roads, present but rarely used. But here's the revolutionary insight. Just as these pathways were built through repetition, they can be rebuilt through different repetition. Every time you consciously choose a different thought, take a different action, or practice a different response, you're literally changing your brain structure. The old pathways begin to weaken while new pathways begin to strengthen. The key to leveraging neuroplasticity is understanding that change requires three elements: repetition, focus, and emotional engagement. Repetition because new neural pathways need to be reinforced multiple times before they become strong. Focus because scattered attention doesn't create the concentrated neural activity needed for lasting change. Emotional engagement because the brain prioritizes information that has emotional significance. This is why casual effort produces minimal results while intense focused practice creates dramatic transformation. When you approach mental training with the same seriousness that an athlete approaches physical training, your brain responds by creating robust new neural pathways that support your desired changes. The process isn't always comfortable. When you're actively rewiring your brain, you're essentially fighting against existing neural patterns that want to maintain the status quo. This creates a form of mental resistance that can feel like confusion, fatigue, or even temporary regression. But this discomfort is actually a sign that change is happening at the neurological level. Understanding neuroplasticity also reveals why most people fail to create lasting change. They approach mental training sporadically and superficially. They might practice positive thinking for a few days, try meditation for a week, or attempt to build a new habit for a month. But they give up before the new neural pathways have had time to become stronger than the old ones. Real neuroplastic change requires patience and persistence. It typically takes anywhere from 66 to 254 days for a new behavior to become automatic depending on the complexity of the change in the individual. During this period, the new behavior requires conscious effort and feels unnatural because you're literally building new brain hardware to support it. But once the new pathways become dominant, the behavior feels as natural as the old one once did. People who have successfully rewired their brains often report that their previous limitations feel foreign to them, like remembering a different person they used to be. The most exciting aspect of neuroplasticity is that it's never too late to change. While it's true that younger brains are more plastic, research shows that significant neuroplastic changes can occur at any age. There are documented cases of people in their 70s and 80s successfully rewiring their brains to overcome lifelong patterns of anxiety, depression, and self-limitation. Your brain is not your destiny. It's your tool. Every thought you think, every action you take, and every emotion you experience is both a product of your current neural wiring and an opportunity to influence your future neural wiring. When you understand this, you realize that you have far more control over your mental experience than you ever imagined. The question is no longer whether you can change your brain. The question is what you want to change it to. What thoughts do you want to think automatically? What emotions do you want to experience regularly? What behaviors do you want to feel natural? Your brain is waiting for your instructions, ready to rewire itself. Based on the patterns you consistently feed it. Chapter 6. Daily Mental Conditioning. Building Unbreakable Mental Strength. Mental strength is not something you're born with. It's something you build. Just like a muscle, it requires consistent training to grow stronger. The problem is that most people train their minds in the wrong direction. Repeating negative self-talk, reinforcing limiting beliefs, and allowing distractions to weaken their focus. To truly take control of your mind, you must deliberately reprogram it every single day. This is not a passive process. It requires intentional effort, discipline, and commitment. The most powerful way to rewire your brain is through daily mental conditioning. Every morning before the world bombards you with noise, take control of your thoughts. Set your intentions for the day. Not just what you want to do, but who you want to be. Do you want to be someone who hesitates, who second-guesses themselves, who is ruled by old fears, or do you want to be someone who acts boldly, who moves with certainty, who refuses to let fear dictate their choices? Decide before the day begins, because if you don't, the mind will default to its old programming. One of the most effective techniques for daily mental conditioning is visualization. Your brain does not differentiate between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined. This means that when you visualize yourself succeeding, taking action, and stepping into the highest version of yourself, your brain begins to accept it as reality. The more you do this, the more natural those actions become in real life. This is not wishful thinking. It's neuroscience. Athletes, entrepreneurs, and high performers in every field use this technique to prime their minds for success. When you visualize, you're literally rehearsing success at the neural level. You're strengthening the pathways that support confident action while weakening the pathways that support hesitation and self-doubt. But visualization must be done correctly to be effective. It's not enough to casually imagine good things happening to you. You must engage all your senses. Make the experience emotionally vivid and practice it consistently. See yourself performing at your peak. Hear the sounds of success. Feel the emotions of achievement. The more real you can make this mental rehearsal, the more your brain will treat it as actual experience. Another critical habit is intentional self-talk. Every thought you repeat to yourself strengthens neural pathways in your brain. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough, your brain will look for evidence to confirm it. If you tell yourself that success is difficult, your subconscious mind will make sure you struggle. But the opposite is also true. If you train yourself to affirm, "I am capable. I am unstoppable. I always find solutions," your brain will begin aligning your actions with those beliefs. Words are not just sounds. They are commands to your subconscious. Speak with power and your mind will follow. The key to effective self-talk is making it specific, present tense, and emotionally charged. Instead of saying "I hope I'll be confident someday," say "I am confident and capable right now." Instead of "I'll try to focus better," say "I have laser-like focus that cuts through any distraction." Your subconscious mind responds to certainty, not wishful thinking. Daily mental conditioning also requires protecting your mental environment. Just as you wouldn't drink polluted water, you shouldn't consume polluted information. The news, social media, and negative conversations all program your mind with fear, scarcity, and limitation. Most of what passes for information is actually mental poison designed to keep you anxious, distracted, and disempowered. Create boundaries around what you allow into your mind, especially in the first and last hours of your day. These are the times when your subconscious is most receptive to programming. Instead of checking your phone immediately upon waking, spend those precious minutes conditioning your mind for success. Instead of falling asleep to the chaos of the news or social media, use that time to reinforce positive beliefs and clear intentions. Physical practices also play a crucial role in mental conditioning. Your body and mind are not separate systems. They're part of an integrated whole. When you move your body with intention and intensity, you're training your mind to overcome resistance and push through discomfort. Cold showers, intense workouts, and other forms of deliberate discomfort build mental resilience that transfers to every area of your life. The practice of deliberately choosing difficulty trains your mind to see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. Every time you do something uncomfortable by choice, you're proving to yourself that you can handle whatever life throws at you. This builds a deep confidence that no external circumstance can shake. Mental conditioning also requires tracking and measurement. What gets measured gets managed, and this applies to your mental state as much as anything else. Keep a daily record of your mental practices, your emotional state, and your progress toward your goals. This creates awareness and accountability that accelerates your development. Notice patterns in your thinking. When do you feel most confident? What triggers your limiting beliefs? How does your physical state affect your mental performance? This self-awareness allows you to optimize your mental conditioning practices and address specific weaknesses before they become major obstacles. The compound effect of daily mental conditioning is extraordinary. Each day of practice might seem insignificant, but over weeks and months, these small changes create massive transformation. Neural pathways that once supported limitation begin to weaken, while pathways supporting excellence become superhighways in your brain. But consistency is everything. Sporadic effort produces sporadic results. Mental conditioning is like physical conditioning. If you only work out occasionally, you'll never build real strength. But if you commit to daily practice, even if it's just 10 minutes each morning, you'll develop mental muscles that make you unstoppable. The goal is not perfection. It's progression. Some days your mental conditioning will feel powerful and clear. Other days it might feel forced or difficult. This is normal and expected. What matters is showing up consistently regardless of how you feel. The days when you least want to practice are often the days when practice is most important. Remember, your current mental state is the result of years or decades of unconscious conditioning. The thoughts you think automatically, the emotions you experience regularly, and the behaviors you perform habitually are all products of repetitive mental patterns. To change these patterns, you must be as deliberate and consistent with your mental conditioning as you would be with any other important skill. Your mind is your most valuable asset. But like any asset, it requires maintenance, development, and protection. Daily mental conditioning is how you ensure that your mind becomes a source of strength rather than limitation, confidence rather than doubt, and clarity rather than confusion. Chapter 7. Focus Mastery. Reclaiming your mental energy. One of the greatest threats to mental mastery is distraction. In today's world, the battle for your attention is relentless. Social media, news, endless notifications. These things are not just harmless entertainment. They are designed to hijack your focus, scatter your thoughts, and weaken your ability to direct your mind with purpose. The more distracted you are, the less power you have over your own thoughts. Most people have completely lost the ability to focus deeply on anything for extended periods. They've trained their brains to crave constant stimulation and immediate gratification. They can't read a book for more than a few minutes without checking their phone. They can't have a conversation without their mind wandering to what they'll post on social media next. They can't work on challenging tasks without seeking escape through entertainment or busy work. This scattered attention isn't just affecting productivity. It's rewiring the brain in ways that make sustained focus increasingly difficult. Every time you give into distraction, you're strengthening neural pathways that support fragmented attention while weakening pathways that support deep concentration. You're literally training your brain to be distractible. The neuroscience is clear. Attention is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. The more you allow it to be scattered, the weaker it becomes. People who can focus deeply for hours have developed this capacity through practice. Just like athletes who can run marathons have developed their endurance through training. But focus is more than just the ability to concentrate on one thing. True focus mastery involves several interconnected skills: selective attention, sustained attention, divided attention, and meta-attention. Selective attention is your ability to choose what to focus on while ignoring distractions. Sustained attention is your ability to maintain focus over time. Divided attention is your ability to manage multiple streams of information when necessary. Meta-attention is your awareness of where your attention is and your ability to redirect it intentionally. The first step in developing focus mastery is becoming aware of your current attention patterns. Most people have no idea how scattered their attention actually is because they've become so accustomed to mental fragmentation that it feels normal. Start by observing how often your mind wanders during different activities. Notice what triggers distraction. Pay attention to how long you can maintain focus before feeling the urge to check your phone or switch tasks. This awareness alone will begin to change your relationship with attention. When you become conscious of unconscious patterns, you create the possibility of changing them. You start to see distraction not as something that happens to you, but as something you can control. The next step is environmental design. Your environment is constantly shaping your attention, usually without your awareness. Phones, computers, televisions, and other devices are engineered to capture and hold your attention through intermittent reinforcement schedules. The same psychological principle that makes gambling addictive. To reclaim your focus, you must design your environment to support deep work rather than distraction. This means creating physical and digital spaces that minimize the potential for interruption. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Put your phone in another room when you need to focus. Use website blockers to prevent access to distracting sites during work sessions. Create a dedicated workspace that signals to your brain that it's time for focused attention. But environmental design is just the foundation. The real work happens through deliberate practice of focused attention. Just as you might train your body through progressive resistance, you can train your focus through progressive mental challenges. Start with short periods of sustained attention and gradually increase them. Begin with 10 minutes of focused work without any distractions. Then expand to 15, 20, 30 minutes and beyond. During these sessions, your only job is to maintain attention on the chosen task. When you notice your mind wandering, and you will gently redirect it back to the task without judgment. This redirection process is crucial. Many people think that having wandering thoughts means they're bad at focusing, but the opposite is true. Noticing when your mind has wandered and bringing it back is the actual exercise that strengthens your focus muscle. It's like doing reps in the gym. Each redirection is a repetition that builds mental strength. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools for developing focus mastery because it provides pure attention training. Unlike other activities where focus is just one component, meditation is entirely about training your ability to direct and sustain attention. Even 10 minutes of daily meditation can create measurable improvements in your ability to focus throughout the day. But meditation doesn't have to be formal sitting practice. Any activity performed with complete attention becomes meditation. Reading without distraction, having conversations without checking your phone, even eating without multitasking. All of these practices strengthen your capacity for sustained attention. Single tasking is another essential skill for focus mastery. The myth of multitasking has convinced people that doing multiple things simultaneously makes them more productive. But neuroscience shows the opposite. What people call multitasking is actually task switching. And every switch comes with a cognitive cost. Your brain has to refocus. Remember where you left off and overcome the inertia of the previous task. True productivity comes from sustained attention on one task until completion or until you reach a natural stopping point. This allows you to achieve flow states where your mind becomes completely absorbed in the activity. Time seems to disappear and your performance reaches peak levels. The ability to enter flow states is one of the highest expressions of focus mastery. Flow occurs when your attention becomes so completely absorbed in an activity that self-consciousness disappears and performance becomes effortless. This state is characterized by clear goals, immediate feedback, and a perfect balance between challenge and skill level. You can cultivate flow by deliberately designing your work to include these elements. Set clear, specific objectives for each work session. Create systems that provide immediate feedback on your progress. Choose tasks that are challenging enough to be engaging but not so difficult that they create anxiety. Focus mastery also requires understanding the natural rhythms of attention. Your brain's capacity for sustained focus varies throughout the day based on factors like sleep, nutrition, exercise, and natural circadian rhythms. Most people experience peak focus in the morning, declining attention in the afternoon and renewed focus in the early evening. By aligning your most demanding mental work with your natural peaks and scheduling routine tasks during attention valleys, you can maximize your cognitive performance. This is why the most productive people often do their most important work first thing in the morning when their focus is strongest. Recovery is also essential for maintaining peak focus. Just as muscles need rest between workouts, your attention system needs breaks between periods of intense concentration. But not all breaks are equal. Passive activities like taking a walk in nature or practicing deep breathing restore attention more effectively than stimulating activities like scrolling social media or watching videos. The practice of deliberately resting your attention, what researchers call attention restoration, is as important as the practice of focusing it. When you give your mind space to wander without stimulation, you allow it to consolidate information, process experiences, and prepare for the next period of focused work. Chapter 8. Emotional Regulation. Taking control of your inner state. Your emotions are not something that happen to you. They are something you create. This might be the most important realization you ever have about your mental life. Most people live as prisoners of their emotional states, believing they have no choice but to feel whatever arises in their consciousness. They think anger, fear, sadness, and anxiety are forces beyond their control that they must simply endure. But neuroscience reveals a different truth. Emotions are generated by your brain based on interpretations, predictions, and patterns. They feel automatic and uncontrollable only because the process happens so quickly and unconsciously that you're not aware of your role in creating them. Once you understand how emotions actually work, you can learn to influence and direct them rather than being controlled by them. Emotions begin with your brain's interpretation of a situation. Something happens in your environment and your brain instantly categorizes it as good or bad, safe or dangerous, important or irrelevant. This categorization isn't based solely on objective facts. It's filtered through your beliefs, past experiences, current state, and unconscious programming. For example, if someone criticizes your work, your brain might interpret this as a threat to your self-worth, triggering feelings of anger or shame. But if your brain interpreted the same criticism as valuable feedback that could help you improve, you might feel curious or grateful. Instead, the external stimulus is the same, but the emotional response is completely different based on how your brain processes the information. This means that by changing how you interpret situations, you can change how you feel about them. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending that negative situations are good. It's about training your brain to process information in ways that serve you rather than sabotage you. The first step in emotional regulation is developing emotional awareness. Most people are terrible at identifying their emotions accurately. They use vague terms like stressed or upset to describe complex emotional states that actually contain multiple distinct feelings. This lack of precision makes it impossible to address emotions effectively. Start by expanding your emotional vocabulary. Instead of saying you're stressed, identify whether you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, frustrated, or pressured. Each of these emotions has different causes and requires different responses. The more precisely you can identify what you're feeling, the more specifically you can address it. Emotional awareness also means noticing emotions as they arise rather than being swept away by them. Most people don't realize they're angry until they're already shouting or that they're anxious until they're already in full panic mode. By the time you're consciously aware of the emotion, it has already hijacked your nervous system and influenced your behavior. Practice observing your emotions as they emerge. Notice the physical sensations that accompany different feelings. Anger might show up as tension in your jaw or heat in your chest. Anxiety might manifest as a knot in your stomach or shallow breathing. Fear might appear as a tightness in your throat or trembling in your hands. These physical signals are your early warning system. When you learn to recognize them, you can intervene before the emotion reaches its peak intensity. This gives you the space to choose your response rather than reacting automatically. The next level of emotional regulation involves questioning your interpretations. When you feel a strong emotion, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this situation? What interpretation is creating this feeling? Is this interpretation accurate? Is it helpful? What other ways could I look at this? Often, you'll discover that your initial interpretation was based on assumptions, fears, or old patterns rather than actual facts. When you consciously choose a more accurate or useful interpretation, the emotion naturally shifts to match this new perspective. This doesn't mean lying to yourself or ignoring real problems. It means being more objective about what's actually happening versus what your mind is adding to the situation. Your brain is constantly making predictions and filling in gaps with assumptions. And these assumptions often create unnecessary emotional suffering. For instance, if someone doesn't respond to your text message immediately, your brain might create the story that they're ignoring you because they're angry or because they don't value your relationship. This story generates feelings of rejection, anxiety, or anger. But the reality might be that they're busy, their phone died, or they simply forgot to respond. By sticking to the facts rather than the story, you avoid creating emotional turmoil over imaginary problems. Reframing is another powerful tool for emotional regulation. This involves consciously shifting your perspective on a situation to change its emotional impact. Instead of seeing a challenging situation as a problem, you can reframe it as an opportunity to grow stronger. Instead of viewing criticism as an attack, you can reframe it as information that could help you improve. The key to effective reframing is finding perspectives that are both truthful and empowering. You're not trying to convince yourself that bad things are good. You're looking for the aspects of any situation that could serve your growth, learning, or long-term benefit. Breathing is one of the most direct ways to influence your emotional state because it's the bridge between your conscious and unconscious nervous systems. When you're experiencing intense emotions, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which sends signals to your brain that you're in danger, intensifying the emotional response. By consciously slowing and deepening your breathing, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes calm and clear thinking. Simple breathing exercises like inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, and exhaling for 6 counts can dramatically shift your emotional state within minutes. Physical movement is also crucial for emotional regulation. Emotions create energy in your body, and this energy needs to be moved and expressed rather than suppressed. When you feel angry, frustrated, or anxious, physical exercise can help metabolize the stress hormones and reset your nervous system. Even simple movements like stretching, walking, or shaking can help release emotional tension. The goal isn't to avoid feeling emotions, but to prevent them from getting stuck in your system where they can create chronic stress and physical tension. Emotional regulation also involves accepting that all emotions serve a purpose. Anger can motivate you to set boundaries. Fear can alert you to potential dangers. Sadness can help you process loss and connect with others. The problem isn't having emotions. It's being controlled by them or allowing them to persist longer than necessary. When you approach emotions with curiosity rather than resistance, you can extract their useful information while maintaining your ability to choose your response. You can feel angry about an injustice while responding with strategic action rather than reactive rage. You can feel fear about a risk while still moving forward with courage. The ultimate goal of emotional regulation is emotional freedom. The ability to feel whatever arises without being enslaved by it. This means your emotions inform your decisions but don't control them. You can experience the full range of human feelings while maintaining your power to choose how you respond to whatever life presents. Chapter 9. Strategic Thinking. Developing mental models for success. Most people go through life reacting to whatever happens to them, making decisions based on immediate circumstances without considering long-term consequences. They think tactically rather than strategically, focusing on solving today's problems without considering how those solutions might create tomorrow's challenges. This reactive approach keeps them trapped in cycles of short-term thinking that prevent them from achieving their highest potential. Strategic thinking is the ability to see beyond the immediate situation, to understand patterns, anticipate consequences, and make decisions that serve your long-term objectives. It's about thinking in systems rather than events, focusing on underlying causes rather than surface symptoms, and positioning yourself to win the long game rather than just surviving the current moment. The foundation of strategic thinking is perspective. Most people view their lives from ground level, seeing only what's directly in front of them. Strategic thinkers develop the ability to zoom out and view their situation from multiple altitudes, seeing the immediate details, understanding the broader context, and recognizing the long-term trajectory all simultaneously. This multi-level perspective allows them to make decisions that might not make sense in the short term, but position them for massive advantage over time. They're willing to make sacrifices today for benefits tomorrow. They can delay gratification because they see how current actions connect to future outcomes. One of the most powerful tools in strategic thinking is mental models, the frameworks that simplify complex problems and provide structured ways of thinking. These models help you analyze situations from multiple perspectives, avoid common cognitive traps, and make better decisions consistently. First principles thinking is one of the most fundamental mental models. Instead of accepting conventional wisdom or following what everyone else is doing, you break down complex problems to their most basic truths and reason up from there. This approach helps you identify assumptions that might be limiting your options and discover solutions that others miss because they're trapped in conventional thinking. For example, instead of asking, "How can I get better at my job?" you might ask, "What fundamental skills drive success in any professional context?" This leads you to focus on universal capabilities like clear communication, systematic problem solving, and relationship building rather than getting lost in job-specific tactics that might not transfer to other situations. The Pareto principle, or 80-20 rule, is another essential mental model. It recognizes that a small number of factors often drive the majority of results in any situation. Some activities, relationships, or decisions have disproportionate impact compared to others. Strategic thinkers constantly ask, "What are the 20% of actions that will generate 80% of my desired results?" This model helps you focus your limited time and energy on high-leverage activities rather than getting caught up in busy work that feels productive but doesn't actually move you forward. It forces you to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, ensuring that you spend most of your time on activities that compound over time. Inversion thinking involves approaching problems backwards, asking what would guarantee failure instead of what will create success. This perspective shift highlights risks and blind spots that forward thinking might miss. When you clearly understand what would sabotage your goals, you can design systems to avoid those pitfalls. For instance, if you want to build a successful business instead of just focusing on growth strategies, you might ask, "What would definitely kill this business?" This could reveal dependencies on single customers, cash flow vulnerabilities, or operational weaknesses that need to be addressed before they become critical problems. Second-order thinking is the practice of considering not just the immediate consequences of your decisions, but the consequences of those consequences. Most people only think one step ahead, which leads to solutions that solve immediate problems while creating bigger problems down the line. Strategic thinkers ask, "And then what? After every decision, if I take this job, I'll make more money. And then what? I'll have less time for my family and personal development. And then what? I might succeed professionally but fail personally." This extended thinking helps you evaluate whether short-term gains are worth potential long-term costs. Systems thinking is about understanding how different elements of a situation interact with each other over time. Instead of viewing problems as isolated events, you see them as symptoms of underlying structures and dynamics. This perspective helps you address root causes rather than just treating symptoms. For example, If you're struggling with productivity, surface-level thinking might focus on time management techniques or better tools. Systems thinking would examine how your environment, energy management, decision-making processes, and personal systems all interact to create your current productivity level. This broader view often reveals leverage points that can dramatically improve your entire system with minimal effort. Scenario planning is another critical strategic thinking tool. Instead of trying to predict the future, you develop multiple plausible scenarios and prepare for each one. This approach helps you build resilience and adaptability while identifying opportunities that others might miss. You might ask, what if my industry gets disrupted by technology? What if the economy enters a recession? What if my biggest client leaves? What if new regulations change the rules? By thinking through these scenarios in advance, you can develop contingency plans and position yourself to thrive regardless of which future actually unfolds. Opportunity cost thinking ensures that you're not just making good decisions but optimal decisions. Every choice you make eliminates other possibilities, and strategic thinkers constantly evaluate whether they're choosing the best available option, not just an acceptable one. This means asking questions like, if I spend time on this project, what else could I be doing with that time? If I invest money here, what other opportunities am I missing? If I commit to this relationship, what other connections might I not have time to develop? Strategic thinking also requires emotional discipline. The best strategies often involve short-term discomfort for long-term gain, and this conflicts with our natural bias toward immediate gratification. Strategic thinkers develop the ability to make decisions based on logic and long-term benefit rather than current emotions or immediate desires. This doesn't mean ignoring emotions entirely. They provide valuable information about your values and motivations, but it means not being controlled by temporary emotional states when making important decisions that will affect your future. The development of strategic thinking is itself a long-term process that requires consistent practice. Start by regularly stepping back from your daily activities to ask bigger picture questions. Where are your current activities leading? What patterns do you notice in your results? What would need to change for you to achieve your most important goals? Begin applying mental models to situations in your life. When facing a decision, consciously use frameworks like first principles thinking or the 80-20 rule to analyze your options. Over time, these models will become automatic, and you'll naturally think more strategically about everything you encounter. The compound effect of strategic thinking is extraordinary. While others are optimizing for today, you're building advantages that will pay dividends for years or decades. While they're reacting to circumstances, you're creating circumstances. While they're playing the game as it exists, you're changing the rules in your favor. Chapter 10. Mental Resilience. Building an unshakable mind. Mental resilience is not about being tough or emotionless. It's not about suppressing feelings or pretending that difficulties don't affect you. True mental resilience is the ability to maintain your core stability while adapting to whatever challenges life presents. It's about developing such deep inner strength that external circumstances lose their power to control your internal state. Most people's mental state is entirely dependent on external conditions. When things go well, they feel good. When things go poorly, they fall apart. Their confidence rises and falls with their circumstances. Their motivation depends on favorable conditions. Their sense of self-worth fluctuates based on other people's opinions and external validation. This creates an incredibly fragile psychological foundation. When your well-being depends on things outside your control, you're essentially giving away your power to circumstances, other people, and random events. You become a victim of whatever happens to you rather than the architect of your own experience. Mental resilience flips this dynamic completely. Instead of being shaped by your circumstances, you become someone who shapes circumstances. Instead of reacting to what happens, you become someone who chooses how to respond. Instead of being controlled by external forces, you develop an internal locus of control that remains stable regardless of what's happening around you. This transformation begins with understanding the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. Most people waste enormous mental energy trying to control things that are completely outside their influence. Other people's behavior, economic conditions, natural disasters, political events, or random accidents. Meanwhile, they often neglect the things that are entirely within their control. Their thoughts, reactions, choices, effort, preparation, and personal development. This misallocation of mental energy leaves them feeling powerless and frustrated because they're focusing on the wrong variables. Resilient people reverse this pattern. They accept that many things are outside their control and redirect their energy toward the things they can influence. This creates a sense of agency and empowerment that remains stable even when external conditions are chaotic or challenging. The first pillar of mental resilience is cognitive flexibility. The ability to adapt your thinking when circumstances change. Most people develop rigid mental patterns that work well in specific situations but become liabilities when those situations change. They get stuck in old ways of thinking even when those patterns are no longer serving them. Cognitive flexibility means being willing to update your beliefs when presented with new evidence. Change your strategies when your current approach isn't working and shift your perspective when your current viewpoint is causing unnecessary suffering. It's about holding your opinions and strategies lightly enough that you can modify them when necessary. This doesn't mean being wishy-washy or lacking conviction. It means distinguishing between your core values, which should remain stable, and your strategies and beliefs, which should evolve as you learn and grow. Resilient people have unshakable principles but flexible methods. The second pillar is emotional regulation, which we've discussed in detail but takes on special importance in the context of resilience. When you face significant challenges, your emotions will be intense and potentially overwhelming. Your ability to feel these emotions without being controlled by them determines whether challenges strengthen you or break you. Resilient people don't avoid difficult emotions. They develop the capacity to experience them fully while maintaining their ability to think clearly and make good decisions. They can feel afraid while still acting courageously. They can feel disappointed while still persisting toward their goals. They can feel hurt while still responding with wisdom rather than reaction. The third pillar is meaning making. Your ability to find purpose and significance in whatever you experience, especially in difficult situations. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, observed that people who survived the most extreme circumstances were not necessarily the physically strongest, but those who could find meaning in their suffering. This doesn't mean being grateful for bad things or pretending that painful experiences are good. It means developing the ability to extract value, learning or growth from whatever you encounter. It's about asking, how can this experience serve my development rather than why is this happening to me? Resilient people become meaning-making machines. They can find lessons in failures, strength in challenges, and wisdom in pain. This doesn't minimize the reality of difficulty, but it ensures that nothing is wasted. Every experience becomes fuel for growth rather than evidence of victimhood. The fourth pillar is social connection. Humans are social creatures and isolation makes every challenge more difficult. While shared burdens become more manageable, resilient people cultivate relationships that provide support, perspective, and encouragement during difficult times. But this isn't about surrounding yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear or enable your weaknesses. It's about building connections with people who challenge you to grow, support you through difficulties, and hold you accountable to your highest standards. These relationships also provide external perspectives that can help you see situations more clearly when your own judgment might be clouded by stress or emotion. Sometimes resilience comes from borrowing strength from others until you can rebuild your own. The fifth pillar is physical foundation. Your mental resilience is directly connected to your physical condition. When you're sleep deprived, poorly nourished, or physically weak, your mental capacity for handling stress decreases dramatically. Your emotional regulation suffers. Your decision becomes impaired and your ability to maintain perspective diminishes. Resilient people understand this mind-body connection and prioritize their physical health as a foundation for mental strength. They maintain consistent sleep schedules, eat foods that support cognitive function, exercise regularly to build both physical and mental toughness, and manage their energy levels strategically. Building mental resilience is like building physical strength. It requires progressive overload. You can't develop resilience by avoiding all challenges any more than you can build muscle by avoiding all resistance. Resilient people deliberately expose themselves to manageable difficulties in order to build their capacity for handling larger challenges. This might mean taking cold showers to build comfort with discomfort, setting challenging goals that require sustained effort, or putting yourself in situations that require you to overcome fear or uncertainty. Each time you successfully navigate a challenge, you prove to yourself that you're capable of handling difficulty, which builds confidence for future challenges. The practice of stress inoculation involves deliberately exposing yourself to small doses of stress in controlled environments so that you're better prepared when you encounter stress in uncontrolled situations. Military training, athletic competition, and public speaking all serve this function. They create artificial challenges that build real resilience. Recovery is also essential for building resilience. Just as muscles need rest between workouts to grow stronger, your mind needs periods of restoration between challenges. This might involve meditation, time in nature, creative activities, or simply allowing yourself to rest without stimulation. The goal of resilience training is not to become invulnerable. It's to become antifragile. This means developing the ability to actually get stronger from challenges rather than just surviving them. When you reach this level of mental development, setbacks become setups, obstacles become opportunities, and difficulties become the raw material for growth. Resilient people don't just bounce back from adversity, they bounce forward. They use challenges as catalysts for reaching new levels of strength, wisdom, and capability that they couldn't have achieved without facing those difficulties. Chapter 11. Breaking free from limiting beliefs. Your beliefs about what's possible determine what becomes actual in your life. Right now, you're operating under a set of beliefs about yourself, your capabilities, and your potential that were installed years ago without your conscious consent. These beliefs act like invisible chains, constraining your actions and limiting your results, even though they exist only in your mind. Most limiting beliefs sound like statements of fact. I'm not good with money. I'm not a people person. I can't learn new technology, or success requires sacrificing everything else. But these aren't facts. They're interpretations of past experiences that have crystallized into mental rules about what's possible for you. The insidious nature of limiting beliefs is that they're self-reinforcing. When you believe you're not good with money, you unconsciously make financial decisions that confirm this belief. When you believe you're not confident, you avoid situations that would build confidence, ensuring that you remain unconfident. Your beliefs create your reality, which then validates your beliefs, creating a closed loop that's difficult to escape. Breaking free from limiting beliefs requires first identifying them, which is harder than it sounds because they feel like truth rather than opinion. Start by examining areas of your life where you feel stuck or where you consistently get results you don't want. Behind every persistent problem is usually a limiting belief that's creating that pattern. Pay attention to your language, especially when you use words like always, never, can't, or have to. These absolute statements often reveal underlying beliefs about what's fixed versus what's changeable in your life. Notice when you say things like, I always struggle with this, or, I could never do that. These phrases point to beliefs that might be limiting your options. Another way to identify limiting beliefs is to imagine achieving something you want and notice what thoughts arise. If you picture yourself being financially successful, confident, or accomplished in some area, what inner voice starts listing reasons why it won't work? Those objections often reveal the beliefs that are currently constraining your possibilities. Once you've identified a limiting belief, the next step is to examine its origins and validity. Where did this belief come from? Was it formed during childhood based on limited information? Did it develop from a few negative experiences that you generalized into universal rules? Is it based on other people's opinions rather than your own direct experience? Most limiting beliefs crumble under careful examination. You'll often discover that they're based on outdated information, other people's fears, or childhood interpretations of events that you now understand differently. A belief that felt absolutely true when you were 10 years old might be completely irrelevant to your current capabilities and circumstances. The process of belief change involves both logical analysis and emotional reconditioning. Your rational mind might understand that a belief is false. But if it's emotionally charged, it will continue to influence your behavior until you address the emotional component as well. This is where visualization and mental rehearsal become powerful tools. Your subconscious mind can't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual one. So by repeatedly visualizing yourself succeeding in areas where you previously felt limited, you can create new neural pathways that support different beliefs about what's possible. But visualization must be done with emotional intensity to be effective. You need to feel the emotions of success, confidence, and capability, not just see mental pictures. The more real you can make these new experiences feel, the more your brain will accept them as evidence that contradicts your old limiting beliefs. Action is also crucial for belief change. Every time you act in spite of a limiting belief, you weaken its hold on you. If you believe you're not good at public speaking, but give a presentation anyway, you create evidence that contradicts the belief. If you believe you can't learn new skills but successfully master something challenging, you prove to yourself that the belief was false. The key is to start with actions that are challenging enough to contradict the limiting belief, but not so overwhelming that failure would reinforce it. Take manageable risks that stretch your comfort zone while building evidence for new empowering beliefs about your capabilities. Surrounding yourself with people who hold different beliefs about what's possible is also important. If everyone in your environment shares your limiting beliefs, those beliefs will feel like universal truths rather than optional perspectives. Seek out people who have achieved what you thought was impossible and study how they think about challenges, opportunities, and personal capability. Remember that beliefs are tools, not truths. They're mental models that help you navigate reality, but they're not reality itself. You can choose beliefs that serve your growth and success rather than being stuck with beliefs that were installed during less conscious periods of your life. The most empowering belief you can adopt is that beliefs themselves are changeable. When you understand that your current limitations exist primarily in your mind and that your mind can be reprogrammed, you realize that almost anything is possible with the right approach, preparation, and persistence. Chapter 12. Decision-Making Mastery. Every moment of your life is shaped by decisions. From major life choices to micro-decisions about where to direct your attention, the quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. Yet, most people make decisions reactively based on emotions, social pressure, or unconscious patterns rather than strategic thinking. Decision-making mastery is about developing a systematic approach to choices that consistently leads to better outcomes. It's about training yourself to think clearly under pressure, consider long-term consequences, and choose options that align with your values and objectives rather than your immediate impulses. The first principle of good decision-making is clarifying your objectives before evaluating options. Most people jump straight to considering what they could do without first getting clear on what they're trying to achieve. This leads to decisions that solve immediate problems while creating bigger problems later. Start every significant decision by asking, what am I really trying to accomplish here? What does success look like? What are my non-negotiables? This clarity provides a framework for evaluating options based on how well they serve your actual objectives rather than how appealing they seem in the moment. The second principle is gathering the right information without falling into analysis paralysis. Good decisions require good information, but the goal is not to eliminate all uncertainty. It's to have enough relevant information to make a confident choice. Focus on information that directly impacts your decision rather than consuming everything available on the topic. Ask yourself, what information would change my decision if I had it? What am I assuming that I could verify? What questions need answers before I can choose confidently? The third principle is considering second and third order consequences. Most bad decisions happen because people only think one step ahead. They consider the immediate results of their choice but not the downstream effects of those results. For every option you're considering, ask, and then what? If I take this job, I'll make more money. And then what? I'll work longer hours. And then what? I'll have less time for relationships and health. And then what? This extended thinking helps you evaluate whether apparent benefits are worth their hidden costs. The fourth principle is distinguishing between reversible and irreversible decisions. Some choices can be easily changed if they don't work out, while others create permanent consequences. Understanding this difference should influence how much time and energy you invest in the decision-making process. For reversible decisions, speed is often more valuable than perfection. Choose quickly, implement, gather feedback, and adjust as needed. For irreversible decisions, invest more time in careful analysis, since you'll have to live with the consequences long term. The fifth principle is managing the emotional component of decision-making. Emotions provide valuable information about your values and preferences, but they can also cloud your judgment and lead to choices you'll regret later. When facing important decisions, notice what emotions are present and how they might be influencing your thinking. Are you choosing based on fear, anger, excitement, or pressure from others? These emotional states can bias your evaluation of options in ways that don't serve your long-term interests. If you're experiencing intense emotions about a decision, create space between the emotion and the choice whenever possible. Sleep on it. Discuss it with trusted advisors or use techniques like the 10-10-10 rule, asking how you'll feel about each option in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years. The sixth principle is using decision-making frameworks to improve consistency and reduce cognitive load. Instead of approaching every choice from scratch, develop templates and criteria that you can apply across similar situations. For example, you might create criteria for evaluating job opportunities, investment decisions, or relationship choices. Having predetermined frameworks speeds up your decision-making process while ensuring you consider important factors consistently. The seventh principle is learning from your decisions to improve future ones. Most people make a choice and then move on without analyzing what happened. This means they repeat the same decision-making errors over and over. After implementing significant decisions, track the results and analyze what factors led to good or poor outcomes. What information was most valuable? What did you overlook? How accurate were your predictions? This feedback loop dramatically improves your decision-making calibration over time. One of the most important aspects of decision-making mastery is developing comfort with uncertainty. Perfect information doesn't exist, and waiting for certainty often means missing opportunities or defaulting to the status quo when change would be beneficial. High-quality decisions are made with imperfect information, but they're made thoughtfully using the best available data and clear thinking about probabilities and trade-offs. The goal is not to eliminate risk, but to take intelligent risks that offer good risk-adjusted returns. Finally, recognize that not deciding is also a decision. When you postpone choices or avoid making them altogether, you're choosing to let circumstances, other people, or default options determine your outcomes. This is rarely the optimal strategy. Sometimes the best decision is to decide quickly and adjust as you go rather than spending excessive time trying to make the perfect choice. Action creates information and clarity that thinking alone cannot provide. Chapter 13. Building Unstoppable Habits. Your life is essentially the sum of your habits. The actions you take repeatedly, often without conscious thought, determine your health, wealth, relationships, and overall quality of life. Most people underestimate the power of habits because individual actions seem insignificant. But small actions compounded over time create extraordinary results. The challenge is that willpower alone is insufficient for building lasting habits. Relying on motivation and self-discipline means your success depends on how you feel on any given day, which is inherently unreliable. Sustainable habit formation requires understanding the psychology and neuroscience of behavioral change. Habits exist because your brain is constantly looking for ways to conserve mental energy. When you repeat a behavior in a consistent context, your brain begins to automate it, freeing up cognitive resources for other tasks. This is why established habits feel effortless. While new behaviors require conscious effort, the habit loop consists of three components: cue, routine, and reward. The cue triggers the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself, and the reward is the benefit you receive. Understanding this loop allows you to design new habits and modify existing ones more effectively. To build a new habit, start by identifying a clear specific cue that will trigger the behavior. This might be a time of day, a location, an event, or an existing habit. The more specific and consistent the cue, the faster your brain will learn to associate it with the desired behavior. For example, instead of saying, "I'll exercise more," create a specific cue, like after I pour my morning coffee, I'll do 10 push-ups. The act of pouring coffee becomes the trigger that initiates the exercise routine. Make the initial behavior as small as possible to reduce resistance and increase consistency. Most people fail at habit formation because they try to change too much too quickly. Your brain resists dramatic changes but readily accepts small modifications. If you want to develop a reading habit, start with 1 page per day rather than committing to an hour of reading. If you want to meditate, begin with 2 minutes rather than 20. The goal is to establish the neural pathway first, then gradually increase the intensity. The reward component is crucial for habit formation, but often overlooked. Your brain needs to experience some benefit immediately after the behavior to strengthen the association. This reward doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be as simple as feeling satisfied, checking something off a list, or giving yourself a moment of acknowledgement. For habits where the natural reward is delayed, create immediate artificial rewards. If you're building an exercise habit, the health benefits won't be apparent for weeks, but you could reward yourself with a few minutes of a favorite podcast or a check mark on a habit tracker. Environment design is one of the most powerful tools for habit formation. Your environment constantly cues behaviors, often without your awareness. By modifying your surroundings, you can make good habits easier and bad habits harder. If you want to eat healthier, keep nutritious foods visible and convenient while moving junk food out of sight. If you want to read more, place books in multiple locations where you spend time. If you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Habit stacking is another effective technique where you attach a new habit to an existing one. Since established habits already have strong neural pathways, you can leverage their strength to build new behaviors. The formula is: after I do existing habit, I will do new habit. For example, after I sit down at my desk in the morning, I will write 3 sentences in my journal. The existing habit of sitting at your desk becomes the cue for the new journaling habit. Tracking your habits provides both motivation and awareness. When you measure something, you become more conscious of it, which naturally improves performance. Tracking also provides evidence of progress, which reinforces the behavior. The tracking method should be simple enough that it doesn't become a burden. A simple calendar with check marks, a habit tracking app, or even moving a paperclip from one container to another can provide the awareness and satisfaction needed to maintain consistency. Identity-based habit formation is the most powerful approach because it targets not just behavior but self-concept. Instead of focusing solely on outcomes, focus on becoming the type of person who naturally performs the desired behaviors. Rather than saying "I want to lose weight," say "I am someone who takes care of their body." Instead of "I want to write a book," say "I am a writer." When your habits align with your identity, they feel natural rather than forced. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Each time you choose the salad over the burger, you're voting to be a healthy person. Each time you write instead of watching TV, you're voting to be a creative person. These votes accumulate to shape your identity and make future positive choices easier. Breaking bad habits requires a slightly different approach. Instead of trying to eliminate the behavior entirely, focus on replacing it with something better. The neural pathways for bad habits never completely disappear, but they can be overridden by stronger pathways supporting different behaviors. Identify the cue that triggers the unwanted behavior and the reward you're seeking. Then find a different routine that provides a similar reward. If you habitually check social media when bored, replace it with reading articles or taking a short walk. Remember that habit formation is a process, not an event. Most research suggests it takes between 66 and 254 days for a new behavior to become automatic, depending on the complexity of the behavior and individual factors. Expect setbacks and treat them as learning opportunities rather than failures. The compound effect of good habits is extraordinary. Small improvements made consistently over time lead to remarkable transformations. A 1% improvement every day leads to being 37 times better over the course of a year. This is why focusing on systems and processes rather than goals often produces better long-term results. Chapter 14. Mental Execution. From thinking to action. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it is where most people lose the game. You can have the best strategies, the clearest goals, and the most sophisticated plans. But none of it matters if you can't consistently execute. Mental execution is the ability to translate intention into action. To move from thought to implementation with speed and precision. Most execution failures happen not because people lack knowledge or ability, but because they fall into one of three mental traps: overthinking, perfectionism, or distraction. Addiction. These patterns feel productive but actually prevent the action taking that creates real results. The first principle of mental execution is bias toward action. When faced with a decision or opportunity, your default response should be to act rather than analyze. This doesn't mean being reckless, but it means understanding that imperfect action usually produces better results than perfect planning. Most of the information you think you need, you don't actually need. Most of the preparation you think is required isn't actually required. What you need is the willingness to start before you feel ready and adjust as you go. The second principle is ruthless prioritization. Not all actions are created equal. The secret to relentless execution isn't doing more, it's doing the right things with obsessive focus. Most people waste 80% of their time on tasks that don't actually move the needle. Every morning ask yourself, if I could only complete one thing today, what would create the most progress toward my most important goal? Attack that task with complete focus before doing anything else. This ensures that even if the day becomes chaotic, you've made meaningful progress on what matters most. The third principle is systematic elimination of resistance. Every behavior has friction, factors that make it harder to start or continue. Execution masters identify and remove as much friction as possible from important activities while adding friction to activities they want to avoid. If you want to exercise more consistently, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Choose a gym that's convenient to your daily route and prepare your workout plan in advance. If you want to stop checking social media compulsively, remove the apps from your phone and log out of accounts on your computer. The fourth principle is energy management over time management. Your ability to execute depends more on your energy level than on how much time you have. Different types of tasks require different types of energy, and your energy fluctuates throughout the day based on natural rhythms. Schedule your most demanding mental work during your peak energy hours, typically in the morning for most people. Use low energy periods for routine tasks, administrative work, or planning. When you align your tasks with your energy levels, you accomplish more with less effort. The fifth principle is batch processing similar tasks. Every time you switch between different types of activities, your brain has to recalibrate, which consumes mental energy and reduces efficiency. By grouping similar tasks together, you maintain focus and momentum. Instead of checking email throughout the day, designate specific times for processing all your messages at once. Instead of making phone calls randomly, batch them into concentrated sessions. This approach dramatically improves both speed and quality of execution. The sixth principle is setting up accountability systems. If no one is watching, it's easy to slack off. Find systems that force you to stay on track. This could be a coach, a friend who checks in on you, or even a public commitment that puts your reputation on the line. External accountability works because it creates consequences for inaction that are more immediate than the long-term consequences of not achieving your goals. When you know someone will ask about your progress, you're more likely to take action even when you don't feel motivated. The seventh principle is speed of implementation. Many people spend too much time refining their plans and trying to perfect every detail before taking action. While careful planning is important, execution favors speed over perfection. The mindset should be launch fast, iterate quickly. Understand that no plan survives first contact with reality. And the best way to refine a strategy is through real-world testing. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Take action, measure results, and adjust based on what you learn. Mental execution also requires handling resistance and setbacks effectively. Every execution plan encounters obstacles, failures, and unexpected roadblocks. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is not avoiding these challenges, but responding to them strategically. When you encounter resistance, ask yourself, is this a signal that I need to change course, or is this normal friction that I need to push through? Sometimes resistance indicates a genuine problem that needs addressing. Other times it's just your mind's natural tendency to avoid discomfort. Develop the ability to distinguish between productive struggle and unproductive spinning. Productive struggle moves you forward even though it's difficult. Unproductive spinning keeps you busy without creating progress. When you notice yourself spinning, step back and ask what would need to change to start moving forward again. Recovery and sustainability are also crucial for long-term execution. Sprint mentality works for short periods, but consistent execution over months and years requires sustainable pacing. Build rest and renewal into your systems to prevent burnout. This might mean taking strategic breaks, celebrating small wins to maintain motivation, or varying your routine to prevent boredom. The goal is to create a pace of execution that you can maintain consistently rather than burning out from unsustainable intensity. Finally, measure and track your execution consistently. What gets measured gets managed. And this applies to your action taking as much as your results. Keep track of how well you're following through on your commitments. What obstacles commonly derail you and which strategies most effectively keep you in action. This awareness allows you to continuously refine your execution systems, removing barriers and strengthening enablers. Over time, you develop such strong execution habits that taking action becomes automatic rather than effortful. Chapter 15. Becoming the master of your mind. When you reach the final stage of mental mastery, something incredible happens. You become unshakable. Fear no longer paralyzes you because you understand it's just a temporary signal, not an absolute truth. Negative thoughts no longer control you because you've trained yourself to replace them with empowering ones. External circumstances no longer dictate your emotional state because you've built an inner world so strong that nothing can shake it. But most importantly, you realize that you were never truly limited in the first place. The walls of your mental prison were never real. The doubts, fears, and hesitations that once held you back were nothing more than illusions. Illusions that lost their power the moment you decided to question them. You were never lacking. You were never incapable. You were simply conditioned to believe that you were. And now you are free. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistent daily practice, of choosing growth over comfort, of training your mind with the same dedication that an athlete trains their body. Every technique you've learned in this journey compounds with every other technique, creating a synergistic effect that produces capabilities far beyond what any single practice could achieve. The daily mental conditioning creates the foundation. The focus mastery gives you the ability to direct your attention with precision. The emotional regulation keeps you stable under pressure. The strategic thinking helps you make decisions that compound over time. The resilience building ensures that setbacks become setups for even greater achievements. But the real magic happens when these skills integrate into a unified system of mental mastery. You no longer need to consciously apply specific techniques because they become part of who you are. You think strategically automatically. You regulate emotions naturally. You focus intensely without effort. You execute relentlessly without needing motivation. This is the difference between techniques you use and capabilities you embody. When mental mastery becomes your identity rather than something you do, you operate from a completely different level of consciousness. You don't try to be confident, you are confident. You don't work to stay focused, you are focused. You don't attempt to be resilient, you are resilient. Let me show you what this integration looks like in practice. Imagine you're facing a major challenge. Perhaps a career setback, a relationship crisis, or a significant financial problem. The person you were before this training would have been overwhelmed, reactive, and controlled by the circumstances. But the master of their mind approaches the same situation completely differently. First, their strategic thinking kicks in automatically. They step back from the immediate emotion and ask what's really happening here. What are the underlying causes? What opportunities might be hidden in this challenge? Simultaneously, their emotional regulation keeps them stable. They feel the fear, disappointment, or anger. But these emotions don't hijack their decision-making. They use the emotions as information while maintaining their ability to think clearly and act wisely. Their focus mastery allows them to cut through the noise and confusion to identify what really matters. Instead of being scattered by all the problems and possibilities, they zero in on the highest leverage actions that will create the most positive impact. Their mental resilience transforms the challenge from a threat into fuel for growth. They automatically ask, how can this make me stronger? What can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to develop capabilities I didn't have before? Finally, their execution mastery ensures they don't get stuck in analysis or overwhelmed by the situation. They quickly identify the next right action and take it. Then the next one, building momentum and creating progress even in difficult circumstances. This is what mental mastery looks like when all the pieces come together. It's not about never facing challenges. It's about having such well-developed mental capabilities that challenges become opportunities for you to express your strength rather than evidence of your limitations. The transformation process itself follows predictable stages. In the beginning, you'll notice small improvements in specific areas. Maybe you catch yourself in negative thought patterns more quickly, or you find it easier to focus for short periods. These early wins are crucial because they prove to your brain that change is possible. As you continue practicing, you'll experience breakthrough moments where everything suddenly clicks. A limiting belief that seemed permanent dissolves overnight. A skill that felt forced becomes natural. A pattern that controlled you for years loses its grip completely. These breakthroughs can be dramatic and life-changing, but they're actually the result of accumulated practice finally reaching a tipping point. The intermediate stage involves integrating your new capabilities into your daily life. This is where many people struggle because old patterns try to reassert themselves, especially under stress. The key is persistence and patience. Every time you choose the new pattern over the old one, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support your transformation. The advanced stage is characterized by effortless competence. Your new mental capabilities feel completely natural and you can't imagine operating any other way. You might even forget how difficult certain things used to be for you because your current level of mental performance feels normal. But here's what's truly exciting. Once you reach this level of mental mastery, you realize it's not the end, it's the beginning. You start to see possibilities that were completely invisible when you were operating from a lower level of consciousness. You become aware of capabilities you didn't even know existed. Advanced practitioners develop what could be called metacognitive abilities. They become conscious not just of their thoughts but of their thinking about their thoughts. They can observe their mental processes in real time and adjust them like a skilled musician tuning their instrument. They develop intuitive wisdom that goes beyond logical analysis. Their subconscious mind becomes such a powerful ally that it generates insights and solutions that their conscious mind couldn't produce through effort alone. They learn to trust their inner guidance because they've trained their mind to such a high level that its automatic responses serve their highest good. They also develop what researchers call cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously and shift between different mental frameworks depending on what the situation requires. They can think like an engineer when solving technical problems, like an artist when creating something new, like a strategist when planning for the future, and like a philosopher when dealing with life's deeper questions. Perhaps most importantly, mental masters develop genuine confidence that's unshakable because it's not based on external validation or past achievements. It's based on their absolute certainty that they can handle whatever challenges arise because they have complete trust in their mental capabilities. This confidence isn't arrogance, it's the quiet strength that comes from knowing you have the tools to navigate any situation. You don't need to know exactly how you'll solve a problem before you encounter it because you have complete faith in your ability to figure it out when the time comes. Mental masters also understand that their capabilities extend far beyond their individual lives. When you operate from this level of consciousness, you naturally inspire others to develop their own potential. Your presence alone demonstrates what's possible when someone commits to mastering their mind. You become a force for positive change in the world, not through preaching or trying to convince others, but simply by being an example of what human potential looks like when it's fully expressed. People are drawn to you because they sense that you possess something they want. Not material success, but a quality of inner strength and clarity that makes everything else possible. The ripple effects of your transformation extend to every person you interact with, every project you work on, and every challenge you help solve. Mental mastery isn't just about personal development. It's about developing your capacity to contribute to the world at the highest level. Now, let me give you a roadmap for implementing everything you've learned. The journey to mental mastery is not about perfecting every technique before moving to the next one. It's about consistent daily practice across multiple areas while being patient with the process. Start with the fundamentals: daily mental conditioning, basic focus training, and emotional awareness. Spend your first 30 days building these core capabilities before adding more advanced practices. Remember, the goal is integration, not just accumulation of techniques. Month 1 should focus on establishing morning and evening routines that support your mental development. Create sacred time each day for visualization, intention setting, and mental conditioning. Begin practicing focused attention for short periods and start observing your emotional patterns without trying to change them. Month 2, add strategic thinking practices and basic habit formation. Begin applying mental models to your decisions and start building one keystone habit that will support your overall development. Continue deepening your foundational practices rather than getting distracted by new techniques. Month 3 and beyond, you can begin integrating advanced practices based on your specific needs and interests. But never abandon the basics. They remain the foundation throughout your entire journey. The most common obstacle people face is expecting immediate dramatic results. Mental mastery is more like physical fitness than a light switch. You don't go to the gym once and become strong, and you don't practice mental techniques once and become a master. But if you stay consistent, the compound effect over time is extraordinary. Another common challenge is perfectionism. You don't need to execute every technique perfectly to benefit from this training. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Every day you practice, you're moving in the right direction. Even if it doesn't feel dramatic. The third obstacle is social pressure. As you begin to change, some people in your environment might resist your transformation because it challenges their own limitations. Stay committed to your growth regardless of others' reactions. You're not responsible for making others comfortable with your potential. Remember that setbacks are not failures, they're information. Every time you catch yourself falling back into old patterns, you're actually demonstrating increased awareness, which is itself progress. The goal isn't to never have negative thoughts or challenging emotions. It's to notice them quickly and respond skillfully. The world desperately needs people who have mastered their minds. We're facing challenges that require clear thinking, emotional intelligence, strategic planning, and the ability to execute complex solutions over long time periods. These are all capabilities that you're developing through this training. When you master your mind, you're not just improving your own life. You're developing the capabilities needed to solve meaningful problems and contribute to positive change in the world. Your personal transformation becomes your service to others. The journey to mental mastery is also never complete. There's always another level of capability to develop, another limitation to transcend, another area of potential to unlock. But this isn't a burden. It's an adventure. When you understand that your mind is infinitely malleable and that your potential is essentially unlimited, growth becomes a lifelong pursuit of discovery rather than a problem to solve. The world belongs to those who have mastered their minds. Because when you control your thoughts, you control everything. Your thoughts determine your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions. Your actions create your results. Your results shape your reality, change your thinking, and you change everything. So the final question isn't whether you can master your mind. The question is whether you will. Will you commit to the daily practices that create mental strength? Will you persist through the discomfort of changing old patterns? Will you maintain the discipline required to reprogram years or decades of conditioning? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. And now you have the tools, the knowledge, and the roadmap to claim the mental mastery that will transform every area of your life. Your mind is not your enemy. It's your most powerful tool. It's not something to fight against or suppress. It's something to train, develop, and direct toward your highest aspirations. The moment you take full control of your mind is the moment you take full control of your life. Everything you want is on the other side of that decision. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once completely lost. Every person who has achieved mental mastery started exactly where you are right now with a decision to commit to their own development regardless of how long it takes or how difficult it becomes. The difference between those who achieve mastery and those who remain stuck is not talent, intelligence, or favorable circumstances. It's the willingness to begin before they feel ready and persist longer than feels comfortable. You have everything you need to begin this transformation right now. You don't need more information, better circumstances, or permission from anyone else. You need the decision to start and the commitment to continue. So what will you choose? Will you go back to living in the patterns of your past? Or will you step fully into your power, leaving behind every limitation that once held you back? The choice is yours. Your mind is waiting for your instructions. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed. It's time to become the master of your mind and finally start living at the level you were always meant to operate. Your journey to mental mastery begins now. Take the first step. Your future self is counting on the decision you make in this moment.